Did you know data brokers are making billions selling your personal information, usually without your consent? That's how your information lands in the hands of scammers, spammers, even stalkers. It's why you get endless robocalls and why ads seem to follow you everywhere. That's where Aura comes in. Aura actively removes your data from broker sites and keeps it off. They also instantly alert you if your information shows up in a breach or on the dark web. With one app, you get a VPN, antivirus, password manager, spam call protection, dark web monitoring, and up to $5 million in identity theft insurance, all backed by 24/7 US-based support. Other companies might just sell credit monitoring or just a VPN. Aura gives you all of it at the same price competitors charge for just one service. Start your free trial today at aura.com/hidden. Protect yourself now at aura.com/hidden.
This podcast is sponsored by IQ Bar.
I've got good news and bad news. Here's the bad news. Most protein bars are packed with sugar and unpronounceable ingredients. The good news? There's a better option. I'm Will, and I created IQ Bar plant protein bars to empower doers like you with clean, delicious, low-sugar brain and body fuel. IQ Bars are packed with 12 grams of protein, brain nutrients like magnesium and lion's mane, and zero weird stuff. And right now, you can get 20% off all IQ Bar products, plus free shipping. Try our delicious IQ Bar sampler pack with 7 plant protein bars, 4 hydration mixes, and 4 enhanced coffee sticks. Clean ingredients, amazing taste, and you'll love how you feel. Refuel smarter, hydrate harder, caffeinate larger with IQ Bar.
Go to eatiqbar.com and enter code BAR20 to get 20% off all IQ Bar products plus free shipping. Again, go to eatiqbar.com and enter code BAR20.
I'm Kamika Dillard, certified ACC professional coach and CEO of S.A.V.E Coaching. At S.A.V.E Coaching, professional growth isn't one size fits all. That's why we've created 3 ways to support you. DOT for building clarity and direction, RISE for resilience and intentional action, and VISION for long-term strategy and leadership. Each program is designed to help you move through setbacks with confidence and clarity and create momentum that lasts. No pressure, no hustle, just real progress. Ready to explore what's possible? Book a free discovery call at failforwardcoaching.com. Welcome to the Black Women Will Save Black Women podcast, the podcast where we support, amplify, validate, and elevate Black women always. I'm your host, Kamika Dillard, and this is our sanctuary. This is more than a podcast, it's a movement, so let's get into it. All right, for this week's Fail Forward Files, let's talk about feedback. Feedback is a gift, but you have to filter it out. Since I've started my podcast, I've received a lot of feedback, a whole lot of feedback. And in fact, with me, I'm so type A. Remember, I'm still a recovering type A. I haven't gotten all the way from recovery. I take a lot of that feedback, not personally, but I try to make sure, is it something that I can actually correct, action on, et cetera, et cetera. But what is happening is that I'm receiving too many pieces of feedback from too many different sources who have too many different points of views. So what I always have to remember, and just in general, Black people are not a monolith. We're just not. Some things are going to resonate one way with someone else. Some things will resonate in a different way with somebody else. And, I recognize that I was really taking in all the feedback that people were giving to me out of love because, like I said, these are people who I trust. Feedback is a gift, et cetera, et cetera. And, I was trying to make these modifications along the way. And what happens when you're serving and trying to serve so many masters, you really get nothing done the way you want to get it done. So I had to really take a step back and remember that this is my vision. I'm still creating this in the way that I want it to look. it's not going to be perfect, which I'm a recovering perfectionist, y'all. So I have to remember to give myself a ton of grace through this process and not rely on outside validation when it's not necessarily needed. So take from this piece of failure for me is, think about feedback, think about how you would like to receive it and interpret it. So you can receive the gift and, use the gift per se, or you can say this is a beautiful gift and maybe pass it on to someone else. I know we've regifted some stuff. It was just Christmas and the holidays, so there was some regifting going on. Or you can like just, take it for what it is and maybe put it away or throw it away or whatever it is. Some gifts just ain't from some gifts from folks is just not going to be for everybody. And I'm slowly but surely learning that. And what I'm really learning in this whole entire process of being a creator, figuring out what is my juju, what's going to make it work, what's going to make me different, is that at the end of the day, I have to rely on my own uniqueness. So, for those of us out there who are creating, who are trying to figure it out, remember your voice is your voice. Like, stick with what makes you unique. We don't need everyone story, business, etc., looking like a carbon copy of everyone else. Think about like the Kim Kardashian effect. Everyone don't need to look like Kardashians with filler lips, with filler behinds. No judgment, but just from the carbon copy perspective, you won't stick out if you look the same in the crowd. And that is this week's Phil Ford File.
Big news! Wayfair's President's Day clearance is on now, and you can score tons of huge deals. Like Wayfair's best deals since Black Friday. Right now through February 16th, you can score up to 70% off everything home at Wayfair. Like up to 50% off mattresses with fast and easy shipping straight to your door. Plus amazing flash deals on President's Day. Shop Wayfair's President's Day clearance now through February 16th.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
All right. Our guest for the week is Allison Grace Ike, better known as the Econ Queen. She's dedicated her life to empowering learners of all ages through academic excellence and financial literacy. From creating K through 12 personal finance curriculum to coaching adults, Allison Grace brings her God-given gifts to help communities thrive and individuals succeed. Let's welcome to the sanctuary, Allison Grace.
Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. My name's Allison Grace, A.K., also known as the Econ Queen.
Awesome. We're so happy to have you. So, of course, like I've already talked to you and like heard some of your story, but we definitely want to let the audience know what, kind of brought you to this journey of becoming the Econ Queen.
Yes. So I've always had a passion for education and for empowering others to aspire to excellence. That's been in my DNA. I come from a family of educated individuals and entrepreneurs and people who want to make the world a better place in their own specialty. And I decided that it made sense to really lean into that within my own story. And I created the Econ Queen in August of 2021. I've always been a fan of royalty and that self-empowerment. And I recently earned my degree in business economics, summa cum laude, from the University of North Texas. So I'm a proud holder of a bachelor's degree. And I decided to bring it all together and encourage people through academics and personal finance and life skills development. And in 2024, I got the privilege to become full-time self-employed, and I haven't looked back since.
So, what happened in 2024 that led you to leaning in to your business full time?
It was something unexpected. I was laid off from what I felt was my dream job.
Tell us more.
So it was May 21st of 2024 at 11 a.m. here in Texas. I had previously been serving as the financial well-being specialist for a faith-based financial institution. I built their K through 12 financial literacy program for the schools and communities that they impacted. And I traveled across our footprint in Texas and Oklahoma to train our bankers in adult personal finance so that they could go and teach others, and train the bankers in our financial literacy program for the K through 12 so they could go into the schools. And it was everything that I dreamed of. I loved my team. I loved my organization. It truly felt God given. And then one day I got a visit from my supervisor and her supervisor, and they sat me down. I was just about to submit my self evaluation. It would have been 4 years at the bank on June the 2nd, but they sat me down and they let me know that there was a reduction in staff and that my position had been eliminated. And just like that, that was the end of that dream.
So, what did you do in the first 30 days of your layoff?
I rested. And it's hard for me to rest. I have always been the type that wants to work and perform and achieve and execute. And I was put in a position where I just had to stop. And it was a weird feeling because I'd been aggressively in the workspace and academic space my whole life for academics, but the workspace I entered in 2018 in general after the death of my dad and just picking up the pieces and being able to take care of my mom. So all I knew was to work. All I knew was to achieve. But when that opportunity was pulled out from under my feet, it was the first time that the world stopped for me. And I just decided I wanted to sit in that silence. And it was the best 30 days that I could imagine. I got deep into my faith. I started tithing more actively. I was doing a lot more personal Bible study. I built a lot of new friendships and relationships. I became heavily involved in my boxing gym, and I wasn't worried about my finances in that moment. And for those 30 days, I truly felt what it was like to live stress free.
That's so interesting. So, you weren't worried about finances. Did you receive a severance from your layoff, or what was kind of like did you have your 6 months of savings? Why weren't you worried about finances? Most of us, when we lose our jobs, are immediately worried. And I hear you're tithing more post layoff. Please share kind of like what was your financial situation?
So I've always been a believer in practicing what I preach. So even though I am not perfect, I felt as though if I was going to be teaching financial literacy across Texas and Oklahoma, and by extension through the Econ Queen, whenever I was working with some of my college organizations, I had to have a reflection of those lessons. So I had some savings. I wouldn't say 6 months worth, I'm not going to lie, but I did receive a severance from my employer, and I used that as my emergency fund. And it helped keep me afloat in that regard. And I always believed in living within my means. Now, I knew that there were going to be challenges on the horizon because I had just found my first cat, Diana Marie. She's everything I had dreamed of. I'd always wanted a cat, and I found her on May the 14th, and boom, May the 21st, I was laid off, and I'd already signed a lease for a new apartment. I was no longer living with my roommate. I had already prepared for I mentally had committed to some higher expenses because I thought I was going to have my job because everything for me was performance based. But God, in February, earlier in that year, I had been very active in my prayer time. I was preparing for my 25th birthday. I had the intention of being baptized on that day. And in conversation with God and in my prayer time, it had been revealed that when my time with my bank was over, I was going to trust solely on Him and develop the Econ Queen. And I thought I had years to go. I thought I needed more time. I needed more experience, more networking, more connections. I didn't think it was going to happen so soon. But because I knew that my layoff was not my fault, the only solace I had was that this was all part of God's plan. And this is all part of the testimony. And that supersedes whatever fear and anxiety comes naturally in a time like that. So even though I did have that financial foundation, nothing lasts forever. And although I did have that severance opportunity, again, nothing lasts forever. But my faith in God is what allowed me to experience that peace that surpasses all understanding for those first 30 days.
Okay, so we are past our first 30 days. You come to the conclusion within that 30 days that you're not going to try to look for additional employment?
Yes. So a lot of my family members had been expecting me to start sending out applications and hopping left, right, and center into another bank. But in truth, I never wanted to be in banking in the first place. I worked for my bank at the time because of what they believe in and their purpose and values, and how that is honestly part of their competitive advantage about promoting faith, financial well-being, health and wellness, and personal growth. So it wasn't really about the working for a bank aspect. It was changing lives and making things better for other people. And I just did not have the confidence that I was going to see that in the banking industry. And I just value my time more than I value money. And I'd already made that promise to God. And I don't like to break my promises. I don't like to be a hypocrite. And I don't like to fail. So even though one of my aunts, I look up to her in so many different ways. She's an entrepreneur as well, but she's a dentist and she has connections with another bank. And she was telling me that she could try to, help me get my foot in the door there. And I told her no. And I know the job market is not ideal and there are high levels of layoffs that have disproportionately affected Black women. But I just firmly believe that God is greater than all of those things and He's stronger than all of those things. And He can move mountains even when it seems like those things are not changing. And I just did not feel as though it was necessary for me to go back on a promise that I made to God.
No, that's fair. But I'm also, like, as a Christian too, that faith without works is dead. So, what work did you start to do in order to not only fulfill your promise to God, but make sure that you're not destitute in the process? So, you make the decision that you're not going back to corporate America. How did you shift and grow Econ Queen?
So I started with the connections that I had. And that was mainly within the Denton, Texas and DFW Metroplex footprint by leaning into offering more tutoring services for my collegiate students and positioning myself, being active in my undergraduate career. I have relationships through my business fraternity, Alpha Kappa Psi, my sorority, Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. I was a mascot for the university, and so I had connections with regards to student athletics. And I leaned into those opportunities first and then found opportunities to do contract work for other organizations. So, still working on behalf of the Econ Queen and the Econ Queen still providing those services, but tapping into previously established relationships to expedite the growth.
So would you say right now, Econ Queen, because we are now really in 2026, how was 2025 for you for Econ Queen?
2025 tested my faith. 2025 was difficult. I knew it was going to be difficult. Nonetheless, it was still a series of challenges. There were instances where the volume of clients did not match what I was hoping for. And there were instances where the rates that some clients that were available, the rates that they were willing to pay didn't match what I felt I was worth and what I knew I was worth. And it was a very sobering realization that this wasn't going to be easy. I knew it wasn't going to be easy. I watched my parents build and develop their own business from shortly after I was born to when my dad died just 2 days after sending an email for work, and my mom's still running the business now. I know it's not going to be easy, and I know we're in the starting phases, but it is different witnessing it versus living it. And even though it was difficult, even though sometimes finances did not match my hopes and my dreams and my desires, I still was building my brand with different organizations, and I got new opportunities and started new partnerships with SAT, ACT prep that I wasn't expecting in 2024. A example of how 2025 truly throws curveballs. I had initially intended in 2024 to focus on collegiate tutoring. It was accessible. It was an area where I already had very strong market penetration, especially with having direct connections with UNT. But SAT, ACT prep was not something I was anticipating I would dive into. But because new opportunities were presented to me, I had the privilege of developing a Econ Queen branded SAT ACT intensive program, and have been, in works with a tutoring company that is out here for licensing and collaboration, and where I am the subject matter expert, where we're still impacting other communities, but now I'm serving in a different capacity as a trainer, as a mentor, as a leader, and as as the person spearheading a project that goes beyond the area I thought I would influence. So it's been difficult. 2025 was very difficult, but new opportunities were presented to me that I wasn't anticipating, and I'm very grateful for them.
So let's go a little bit deeper because we're kind of speaking a little bit in hyperbole. You said something that I want to kind of poke at a little bit. You said that your expectation for clients and your expectations for what they were paying for didn't match. What expectations did you have?
You know, I had initially focused on reclaiming my old income in a sense, making the same amount. And I was really pursuing making the same type of money I was making previously. And it seems like a lofty dream. When you're starting a business out, it's not going to be the same pay as when you're working for an established organization. I was hoping to have the same 40 hours that were comfortable and getting paid more than I used to. In the past, it was at the time of my layoff, I was getting paid 27 and 30 and 42 cents an hour. And I was hoping for 50, 60. And it was because I knew that my track record as an educator had changed the trajectory of previous students' lives, that they had achieved high levels of excellence. And I was thinking that base level people, more people would see that vision. But there are some people that saw the vision, but did not have the money to match. And I understood that in starting my practice full time, only taking people that were willing to pay the minimum expectation at that point, it wasn't it wasn't feasible at that time, simply because there's still more room for growth, for greater brand awareness, for more intentional marketing. And I it's not that I overestimated my value. That's not the case. But I had new learning experiences and new opportunities for putting my name out there and identifying what market I truly wanted to lean into.
So, what adjustments did you make from the start of the year to the end of the year?
I did more contract work as opposed to organic client intake. So, a majority of the clients that I worked with through 2025, they were through other organizations that the Econ Queen partnered with. At first, I was thinking that a lot of them would see the Econ Queen and we would have the consultation session. Boom, here's the price. Boom, here's the plan. Are you in or out? It's not as simple as that, but I thought that the organic growth would be more rapid than it actually was. Now, what I will say is, with regards to the organic growth, the clients that I did capture, they did pay my rates and above, and they do. My contract work was more and is more consistent, admittedly, but the amount that I'm paid is not the same. So the question was I really willing to swallow that pride and deal with the reality that to make ends meet, to not be destitute, like you said, I had to take that pay cut? Was that something I was willing to do? And the answer was yes. I am not the type that feels comfortable asking people for help. And I know that being close to community is essential, and growing in trust and leaning on the people that you believe in and that believe in you is part of the story. But I know that that is a personal growth opportunity for myself. I struggle with trusting people. I struggle with giving pieces of the Econ Queen to other people for them to work on, because sometimes deliverables don't match what my vision was. And I can see what's right in front of me, but communicating that vision, even so, other people might not see it the same. But also, I my my parents, when they were starting their business, they were very reserved and to themselves. My dad did not like talking to other people about the difficulties of starting a business and solely relying on that and the financial challenges that come from it. Even I realized in November of 2025 that I feel the same way. But if it helps someone understand that it's part of the narrative, I don't mind.
So,
But
so, so,
it
uh,
was
so let's talk a little bit. I want to interrupt just because I want to make sure we don't kind of bypass something that I think is super important, especially for this community that you mentioned. You said you have a hard time trusting folks. Why is that?
because people that I've loved and cared about have let me down, disappointed me, confused me, or betrayed me in ways that I'm not interested in. I've not been interested in exposing myself to that vulnerability again. And it can happen as closely as in the home or with your family or with your friends. It's not always the other businesses, it's not always the external partners. Sometimes it is too close to home. And I understand that there's a difference between business development and personal development, but because I am the econ queen, as I am developing myself, I am developing my business. And as I'm developing my business, I have to develop myself. But most of my life, I've had to take care of myself and thereby take care of other people. Being taken care of is something that either is not sustainable or is not proven to be sustainable, or ultimately something falls through. It is hard for me to believe that someone is actually going to be able to take care of the issue, even if I'm struggling. So instead of putting myself in that position where I'm feeling this anger, this disappointment, this frustration about having to grow up too fast or having to take care of people who should be taking care of me, I just silence the issue and really I tend to keep it to myself. But as I've gotten older, I've found that it's not healthy.
Yeah, so it's not healthy, but I think also it's not beneficial to your business model. So, how do you plan to separate some personal setbacks and what I would categorize as issues that have arisen not from a business perspective per se, but because of the experiences that you have lived? How do you plan to separate that so that you can maybe take a different approach in your business versus how you've approached your personal life? Because at the end of the day, if you want to build out Econ Queen to be what you envision it to be, you cannot do it alone. You have to have a team. You have to have folks around you. So I want to know what you're thinking through for your approach to, I guess, trusting others along the way for this business journey.
So, with regards to even at the base, give it, pursuing the opportunity to trust others and try new things. Entrepreneurship is risky. And what I've had to tell myself is, would you rather be stuck or would you rather see greatness? And even though greatness is going to require that risk, it is going to have some pain to it. There is going to be difficulty. I'm not going to be right 100% of the time. I can't be. But is my pride somehow greater than God's plan for my life? Absolutely not. And I have to lean very deeply into my faith for that discernment. But from that practical sense, from my works, setting clear black and white expectations. If I'm going to pursue, which I am pursuing scaling and growth, I need to be able to identify candidly what I need help with, what does that help look like, and what are the specific deliverables I'm looking for. Then, when I communicate clearly and I've observed and I, know the behaviors and the actions and the reputation and, all of those backings of whomever I'm interacting with or as I'm building my team, then there's no miscommunication. Improving and polishing my communication is going to be key for advocating for myself and setting those boundaries, but also understanding that this is necessary. Growth is uncomfortable sometimes, and that's okay. But leaning on God for that strength, even when there is everything within me that is screaming to do it myself, coming to terms with the fact that I was not built to do every single thing on my own. For instance, building a marketing plan and executing social media marketing is something that takes a lot more energy out of me than it would somebody who's an expert in that category. So, having somebody who would help me with social media management, yes, that requires trust, that the image of the brand is sustained, that the content is consistent, that it is accurate, and that it truly reflects the excellence that my brand represents. But I know in my heart of hearts that I will not maximize that aspect of my business growth if I'm just doing it by myself. It has been proven by my own actions, by my own words, and even by my own procrastination, if we're being 100% candid, that in this specific instance, social media marketing and social media development and expansion, that's not my strength. While I can empower and encourage and I can tutor and I can educate, that part of it where I know I can see exponential growth by trusting somebody else, I have to overcome that personal challenge and lean into my resources and lean into the opportunities that are available, even if it's a little bit uncomfortable.
So, Allison Grace, you've said a lot and you've said a little. So I'm going to poke at you just a little bit more about this. So you said something that I think will resonate with a lot of business owners. Um, you said something about things being either black or white, but business does not operate like that. We often operate in a gray area. So I guess my question to you would be, how are you discerning? And we talk a lot about building business, and you're early in your building a business, just based on your age. How are you making and discerning the boundaries that you set? Who's helping? Who's guiding you? You talk about your faith a lot. And listen, I lean on God too, but I also know that God has put people in my life to assist me in places that I am not an expert at. So have you done a self-assessment really from a business perspective to think about a pathway forward for you to be successful in 2026?
Yes. And you mentioned about how God does put people in your path that can support you and guide you in those areas where you're not strong. And one of the greatest examples I can think of is my aunt Marie. She has been in business for over 40 years as a dentist. She owns her own practice. And some of those challenges that I have with very specific details, for instance, with financial documentation, that was something that I was not always the best with. I can help people with their budgeting, but nickeling and diming every single thing for myself and crafting those projections, that's something that takes more work and takes more practice. But I look to her in those conversations about how to keep things organized. Same with my mom as a business owner. She's a business owner as well, and she was always over operations when it was her and my dad. And that was an example of a business where it couldn't have just been my dad alone, because similar to me, we enjoyed that front facing conversation, talking about services and talking about the value that it brings. But some of that back end administrative work, that took a lot more insight from other people. And I really give credit to my aunt and my mom and my mom's friends, who have all been in these different corporate spaces, about learning the significance of those things. And with regards to my own self analysis, I am aware that while my strength is that communication, that presentation, that empowerment, that finding and communicating the value of what I bring to a person, my weakness can be those back end administrative things. They can get overwhelming. And while I can be aware that certain things are important, I know that my execution can be iffy. And having an accountability partner, such as my aunt, such as my mom, and hopefully having, more people or somebody else, again, that I trust to have good intentions and good execution, that will help. And
Have you considered hiring a business coach?
I've considered it, yes.
And what was the conclusion you came to?
I, when it comes to the affordability, admittedly, I have not prioritized that financially. So I've leaned into the mentorship that is accessible to me as is. But as I grow, then tapping into other more subject matter experts or more specialized support, that's something that I want to do.
What would you say is your biggest need right now?
My biggest need.
If you had a goal and your goal was for 2026 to make, I don't know, let's just throw a number out there. I'm going to put a very round number out there, $200,000. What do you think you need to do, or what do you think you need in terms of resources in order to meet that goal?
First, I would need to have a structured and detailed game plan that includes objectives and action items that are going to lead towards that financial goal. So having not only an accountability partner, but somebody that I can brainstorm and organize my thoughts with.
Well, you keep
That
saying accountability partner. What's the deal with the accountability partner?
so if there are campaigns or deadlines that I set but are not forward facing or external, sometimes I prioritize other things first. I too find myself prioritizing providing my services and doing that direct customer facing action before some of the back end administrative work, like, for instance, facilitating or structuring and facilitating a marketing campaign in the timeline that I had initially envisioned. I find that I am most efficient whenever I am serving someone outwardly, but whenever there is that delayed gratification or those delayed benefits, I do find that the deadlines can be pushed. Not often, not a lot, not too far, but I'm not meeting my own expectation in that regard. And I know that I am strongest whenever I check in with somebody, when they know what my goals are, and we can have that conversations. For me, having that accountability partner, and I say that again because just having that and having that conversation, it does inspire me to hold myself to the deadlines that I set in the first place, even if they're not customer facing, even if they're not immediate financial gratification.
So, is it an accountability partner you need, or do you need an executive assistant? Because the way that you just described what you really need to me is someone who is going to remind you of what you need to do. Accountability partners are partners that help you along the way in terms of you guys either have similar type goals. So you're partnering together to ensure that you guys are both able to facilitate the completion of your goals together. What you described more so sounds like the need for maybe some back end help to ensure that things aren't lost in the sauce.
That would help greatly.
Okay, so we've knocked off one thing. What else would you need in order to meet this $200,000 goal?
If I had, so we've covered having an executive assistant for that back end. Naturally, I would I would need funding for scaling. And I say that because if I can expand my marketing campaign, provide the next level of platform content that's not just, you know, I created this, but there are some things that, for instance, with the SAT program, while I do utilize College Board materials, having an online platform that can run on its own, that would take away, or that would allow for me to still generate revenue and still serve people, but then I as a person can focus on other things or on that individualized tutoring. For I keep going back to that marketing because I already know that the products and services that I offer, clearly there is a market for them, but I need to reach that market more intentionally, more actively, and more aggressively. And I am in the perfect physical position from the tutoring side, being connected directly to UNT and other universities. And then from the SAT ACT side, being able to build the next level of tutoring that can be competitive to against larger organizations that specialize in that. Being able to match that manpower, not just the items, but a team would be necessary too.
I want you to think about that some more. I want you to think about that some more. And the reason why I would like for you to think about that some more, you said a couple of different things. You said you needed marketing or you needed resources to help, go out and market. But I feel that the products that you might be marketing, you have you're serving two different masters essentially. I have my own test prep business, and I've had it for 13 years now at this point. I have that very separate from Fail Forward coaching. I have that very separate from Black Women Will Save Black Women. So when you think about like that $200,000 number that I keep throwing out, is do you feel that you can do that around financial literacy alone, or are you trying to do it around financial literacy in the test prep?
I I do keep my services separate, but what if I'm understanding correctly, you have multiple entities, and currently all of my services and products are underneath the Econ Queen specifically. So then it may be that what we're looking at is almost that restructuring so that there are clear separations between the lines of businesses, because I do financial coaching and financial literacy workshops. I do SAT, ACT test prep. I do high school tutoring for subjects and collegiate tutoring for subjects. These are all different things and they all have different markets. And I'm trying to make sure that I'm understanding where you're getting at in this regard, but I don't I don't while there are some general principles that may mix in, um, they are all separate. But as I'm working with my SAT, ACT students or my high school subject students, then that builds that relationship and that proof of success so that when they go to college, that relationship continues.
Of course, of course. And the reason why I'm poking a little bit at you, Allison Grace, and this is beneficial because I think what happens with a lot of entrepreneurs, especially you being so early in your entrepreneur journey, even though you've had your business for a few years, for you to be heavily reliant on this as now your sole income. I don't think, and I've been guilty of this. I think sometimes we do too much, and where I want you to kind of think about, and you don't have to think about it with us today, but I know that the audience is like, has she thought about X, Y, and Z? Is she doing this, and et cetera, et cetera? I really want you to think about what do you want to do and how do you want to do it, like for 2026. You know, are you going to dwell in like your econ financial services because that's a different way to market versus marketing your SAT, ACT, etc. So when I'm asking this $200,000 question and your approach is, hey, I need resources, I need marketing, we got to be really like succinct in what are we needing these things for? And it's something to think about. And like you don't may not have the answers today, you know. I'm just trying to give you something to kind of noodle on as you think about a path forward because I want you to be successful. I want you to come a year from now and say, girl, yes, I thought about all these things. Your journey itself is going to resonate with a lot of people because you're making this leap and you're deciding that, hey, I'm going to do this. But like many Black women, you don't want to ask for help. It is something that's challenging for you because in your personal life, you've had some experiences that have not been agreeable for you asking for help, depending on folks, etc. I think it's super important for us to think about how we can lend business development and thinking through our structure for business to help on that personal side as well. Make
And that
sense?
That absolutely makes sense. And I will say that, I know that in a year, we reconvene or we meet along the way. There are some things will, I'll, to be candid, be more open about. And I think this is also part of me as an individual and, as a growing business owner. There are some things that I would like to talk about later,
Absolutely.
not right now. And that can lead itself to some more broad responses on my part. But the same thing, but I want to say that I'm always receptive to new ideas and feedback and understanding what has worked because it is new. And also the entrepreneurial journeys that I've seen in my family and in my background, the creator, in frankly most if not all of the cases, did hold on until it was the end. And the econ queen has the potential to survive, and it has the potential to survive past my lifetime as well. And I know that if I want to see that happen, or if I want to see to it that it's going to happen, there are going to be different experiences in my journey in entrepreneurship that the people in my family didn't experience.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's exciting how much opportunity is out there. But I also know that I am guilty of wanting to be everywhere, doing everything all at once, not just the financial literacy, not just the test prep, not just the subject tutoring, not just the high school and collegiate. There there are there have been more ideas and more thoughts that have
Of
crossed
course.
my mind over ever since 2021. And anytime I interact with people, anytime I engage with them, I always tie it back to, where's the opportunity in this? What's next? What can I do with this? How could I grow my business, or how could I grow myself and thereby, mature that way? And I I'm excited about those things, but I definitely see where you're coming from, and I know that in a year there will be more details and there will be more stories that I share more candidly. And while right now I'm more on the reserved side, I do hope that my desire for success is clear to you and to everyone else that's joined us today. And with that desire for success comes the acknowledgement that I can't do it alone. It can't just be the echo chamber that is Allison Grace AK's head. That's going to take other people and their successes and their stories. And since we are all a mosaic of all of the people that have come before us and that are with us, and we are a dot in that mural for someone else, I am excited to hear what people have to say. And I appreciate the questions that you pose for me. And I'm excited to be pushed to that next level in whatever form that takes.
I love that you're excited. Tell the people where they can find you.
Yes, you can find my website, www.econqueen.com. I have an Instagram, econ_queen, Facebook, the same tag, and you can connect with me on LinkedIn. My name is Allison Grace, AK. It is spelled ALYCESON hyphen Grace, GRACE. My last name is spelled EKE, and it's pronounced AK.
And we will have all that on the screen and in the bio or the episode information for the podcast. So thank you, Allison Grace. You've been wonderful. I really appreciate our conversation today. I think it's going to help a lot of people as they think through their entrepreneurial journeys.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it more than you know.
Awesome. All right, y'all. So for this week's SAVE strategy, we are going to focus on the S for support. So I think, and I took away from our conversation with Allison Grace that You cannot do this alone. You have to have resources. You have to lean in where, you know, you may not be strong in an area. For me, I know where I'm not strong. I know where I am a big picture thinker. I know that I have built a support system that enables me to be successful. And I didn't do that overnight. So when you think about support, y'all, support requires a level of vulnerability. Don't be afraid to be vulnerable in your search for support. I think it's super important to understand that support may not be perfect, that support may be a little flaky at times, but you have to take what you need from the situation, learn from it, but never quit and never stop asking for help. And that is this week's SAVE strategy. It's been a wonderful episode of Black Women Will Save Black Women. As usual, take what you need, give what you can. Follow us on all social media channels. Black Women Will Save Black Women. Hit like, hit subscribe. If you are interested in being on an episode of Black Women Will Save Black Women, please send an email to info@blackwomenwillsaveblackwomen. We would love to have you on to share your story, be a resource, etc. All right, it's been another wonderful week. Thank you so much. And as usual, Black Women Will Save Black Women. I'm your host, Kamika Dillard. See you next week.
With so many options, why choose Arizona State University?
For me, the only online option was ASU because of the quality. Their faculty was really involved with their students and care about your personal journey. The dedication to my personal development from my professors, that's been extremely valuable to me.
Earn your degree from the nation's most innovative university. Online. That's a degree better. Explore more than 350 plus undergraduate, graduate, and certificate programs at asuonline.asu.edu.